Hey everybody, it's Chris Chudacoff. Thanks for coming into my show. Call it a podcast, call it an interview with friends. I have some exceptional relationships that I'm just super blessed and fortunate to have. And these relationships are experts in their field. I'm not interviewing someone that's like pretty good at hopscotch. I want the best hopscotcher that's ever existed. And I want you to meet some of those people in my life. This is not a referral. It's an introduction for you to be able to spend some time with some people that I just have had a great business relationship, probably more importantly, have a friendship with. And so let me tell you a quick story. Today, I'm so thankful to have two of my absolute favorite human beings. They know it. I tell them both this all the time, and I don't say that to everybody. And so I'm here with my friend Kathy Clark and her daughter, Brenna Van Hogenston, who we will get much deeper on the mother-daughter connection. So Brenna, Kathy, thanks for taking the hot seat today.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Very
It's
excited.
An honor.
The hot part is concerning me a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and I already know that about you. Like, I love how nervous you are right now. And one of the reasons I love your dynamic and your relationship that I've shared with you for a long time is I love what Brenna makes you do. And I love, probably more importantly, how uncomfortable it makes you. So Brenna and Kathy run an exceptional real estate team in Southern California, specifically Newport Beach. They are owners of Harcourts Blue Water. And Harcourts has a really unique value proposition that we'll talk about later. But the best part of Brenna and Kathy is their relationship because it's a mother and a daughter. And Brenna's younger. I have a daughter her age, and she forces her mom to do stuff she just doesn't want to do. And Kathy gets super uncomfortable with it. So let's just jump into that right now. Like, let's not waste any time. Brenna joins your team, right? You're going to sell real estate together. This is your kid, right? So there's always some delicacies around that. How uncomfortable are you in the beginning because Brenna's great at social media. She's going to push you to the edge. How hard was it in the beginning, and has it become a little bit easier to get on camera and do some of the things you don't really want to do?
Oh, gosh, that's kind of a loaded question. Yes, it's gotten easier.
Yeah.
I'm still not comfortable with what I see.
Yeah.
Hate them. And I will say to you can't use that one. We're not using that one. Do not publish that at all.
Do you listen to her on those, Brenna?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's her page too, and I want her comfortable. So I would never not listen when she said that.
Yeah. Is it getting more comfortable just because you're doing it more? Or like, did you have like for instance, and you and I have talked about this before, I self-deprecate a lot. Even if there's an area that my wife might be like, oh, I think you're really good at that. I self-deprecate a lot. Were you afraid like you wouldn't be good at it? Because I've shared with you, I think you crush it in the stuff that the two of you do because of
Everyone else says that too.
Right?
Everyone else says that.
It's noticeable because I think because of the personality, there's some similarities, but there's some stark differences. And it takes you out of your comfort zone. I think taking you out of that is one of the reasons why it does so well. Are you feeling that? Like, are you getting to experience that? Kathy's like, wait, I didn't want all these questions on me to start.
No, I'm very proud of what Brenna's created. I think she's done a spectacular job.
Yeah.
If I could not be in any of it, I wouldn't be in any of it. I don't mind talking about content and specific things.
Sure.
But it's kind of the nature of who we both are. Brenna is just much better at making people comfortable and having a really good time.
Yeah.
And I'm much more about information and spitting out information and that kind of thing. So
sure.
it is uncomfortable, but I think in today's market, if you don't have that presence, you're not really serving your clients well. So to me, that's more what it's about, because by having that audience, it serves our clients better. And in the end, that's all we're about anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually, I do want to make a point here, is the best performing videos all of the time are the ones that she is in and the ones that are funny. Like, people love her. They like, I think this is such a common thing right now where you're seeing people who clearly are not growing up with selfies and all of that stuff, getting in front of the camera and getting out of their comfort zone. And people love it. And people love to see you that way. So her videos do very well.
Yeah. The dynamic, the reason why I think it works so well is because you're authentic. Like, the way you two make a face at each other or say something to each other. Yeah. And I think what it does, I know you both know this, it humanizes you. And in a landscape of professional real estate, right, there's so many opinions out there about, no, there is, right? Does that person work hard? Is it a part-time mom? Is it someone that does it 80 hours a week? Is it someone who only cares about, there's so many different, narratives that are irrelevant. But what you two do is you humanize it. And I tell you both all the time, like, oh my gosh, that one was so good. And I think what it does is allows someone to come into your home, and it allows, and everyone knows the story. Oh, the younger daughter's making the mom do something she doesn't want to do, and the mom's doing it under protest. So I'm glad we just got to get that out of the way early, because I mean it, Kathy. I think you crush it. I love these things to be more personal. We're definitely going to dive into some business, especially some important topics in real estate in February 2025. But this is the most important thing we're going to talk about right now for our entire time together. You ready?
Yes.
You're a teenager. You got a brother, and you got a mom.
Yep.
Right? Were you the teenager who's like, I love my mom, but I know more than her? Or I love my mom, but she does not know what time I should be home under curfew, and I'm going to sneak out so she doesn't catch me? Or I'm just going to say, yeah, Mom, I'm going. I don't care what you say. Like, what was that like?
So I love this question because it's not often. Kathy is someone that people really respect and no one wants to mess with.
Right.
So
that's
people
right.
assume that that's the dynamic in our house when I was a kid, and it was. But there was also this relationship of trust, and that was mirrored when I joined her in real estate. Like, she let me into meetings that I shouldn't have been speaking in because I didn't know what I was doing, but she trusted me. Yeah. And it was the same thing when I was a teenager. My brother was rough. Like, he was a hard, teenager. And so I think she was, one, worn down. She was tired. But two, she always said, she's like, I trust you to make good decisions.
Yeah.
Just tell me what's going on so that I don't have to, I'll pick you up. Don't take someone's, get in someone's car after they've been drinking. That was the dynamic. And so obviously I still hid things as any teenager does, but she gave me the reins to say, make the right choices. I know you can. Yeah. And I think our relationship, I was, teenagers we can be sassy, especially those girls. Yeah. So I'm sure I remember being just a horrible, horrible little companion and friend at times, but we were very close as we are now. Yeah. So I feel, grateful for that.
Yeah.
I keep letting her think how bad she was.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it works way better for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm nice now.
Because now that we're going to go public, and you and I have talked about this before, I don't want to say she wasn't difficult, right? But she was a teenager. But you've said before, we know different stories of different relationships with moms and teenagers, and that just really wasn't yours, right? I mean, she just wasn't that kid to a certain degree.
No. If anything, she was very attached to her friends. Yeah. And some of them were great kids, and some of them weren't such great kids.
Sure.
And I was probably harder on her depending on the friends she was with.
Of course.
Than I was just with her making decisions. Yeah. But we were always really close, and I really wanted that. And I also went to some seminars and learned some things in the middle of that stage of parenting, and I'd always had
I call that therapy, by the way.
There you go. I also did therapy, but that's another kind of thing. But somebody had said to me early on, because I'd watched kids be really ill-behaved, and in my first career, I sold high-end European collectibles. So I'd be in an art gallery with a $800,000 sculpture, and there'd be 3-year-olds running around with parents not stopping them. And I always said that would never be my child, and it wasn't. It was not. Yeah. I mean, I would look across the room just like my parents had, and everybody froze because they saw the look and they just knew. Yeah. And so the idea was we got to an age where they're teenagers, they already know what they're supposed to do. You got to give them the room to make the decisions and make the choices. And so that's all I tried to practice. And honestly, I was worn out. Her brother had worn me down. The economy had worn me down. There were a lot of things. I was just so checked out at that point that I was just happy to put one foot in front of the other each day.
She says checked out. That's not at all emotional. What it was, but I think you were just tired. You were always there. You were always showing up, as a mother. It was just that you were tired.
You know something that as long as I've known both of you and as much time as I've spent individually and then together, I'll tell you something that I just noticed that I love, but I'm replaying now. You've always done it. You two look at each other like an old married couple when you talk. No, like you ever watch people? Like I know that with my wife, if someone says, "Oh, like what?" I'd be like, "Oh yeah," and I'll be telling a story, and I'll be looking at Chris for almost like an affirmation. Like you two are an old married couple. Like the way you look at each other when you're speaking, it's really
That's
sweet.
That's actually sweet. Yeah, I like that.
It's really sweet. Okay, let's jump into work for a minute. We're going to spend most of the remaining time on that, but. Did you want to get into real estate, Brenna? Or Kathy, did you say, hey, you're not doing anything with your life. Come look at what it's like to sell a house.
I was managing a restaurant. I had hosted, bartended, done the whole thing. I'd gone up, the highest point you can get in a restaurant in my very early 20s. I think I was 22. And I was like, this is not where I want to be. I'm out.
Long hours, no pay.
Exactly. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life and had gone to a few years in community college and come home and just sort of bartended, then traveled, then bartended, then traveled. And that was kind of my routine. And I wanted to go back to school, but I didn't want to do it with student loans and I didn't have money. So my thought was, why don't I do real estate for a few years?
How old are you at this point?
22.
Okay.
I'll do real estate. I don't need a degree. And it's, in my mind, the fastest way from $0 to, a good amount to go back to school with. If, I can do that for the first few years, then go back. Maybe then I'll know what I want to do with my life. So I came to her and I said, I want to get into real estate. And she was like, no, you don't. Because she thought I wanted like a summer job. She didn't understand that I wanted to, accrue some savings and really invest. And so then I think eventually she came back to me and said, I didn't know you were serious about this. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And within the first year or so, I was like, oh, I'm not going back to school. Like this is what I want to do.
Now, when you were going through that process, like I love the transparency of like, I needed a job that was better than $2,000 a month working 90 hours a week in a restaurant. And I think I'm going to do this, right? At that age, I don't know if you can, did you like real estate? Did you love real estate? Or literally was it like, I want to make more money and I get to work with my mom and I think I'll be good at it?
I didn't know enough about real estate to like it or not. I just knew she's doing this. I listened to her doing mortgages when I was a kid in the car. Right. I knew you kind of have freedom of your time, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know much. And then what's great is within the first year or so, I was making cold calls. That's how I was generating business. And I grew up playing sports. And so I felt this kind of, there was something similar about the chase and the high highs and the low lows and the competitive nature of, either I want this listing or I want to get my clients this house, whatever it was. I enjoyed that part of it. And so that really is what sealed it for me quickly. But going in, I was like, I didn't know what escrow was. I was just fish out of water. So,
But we had I grew up with my mother in real estate, not her first job, but her last job. And Brenna and I were always driving around, going to open houses. And there was always a passion for houses. And
I love the aesthetic, like the design piece. Yeah. I would have considered interior design at some point. So that piece I loved, but that's just a little sliver of the day.
One of the, I talk about you guys often with people that I have relationships when we're talking about real estate and some of the other, I have some great real estate partners. I am so fortunate. One of the dynamics I talk about the two of you, why I think it's such a good fit, because I don't need you to talk great about yourselves. I'll do that for you. You wouldn't be here if I didn't believe it. We've talked about this. One of the great dynamics about the two of you is you and I have shared long history together in the mortgage business. You then transition that into the real estate business. Genius. You bring so many years of experience, the successes, the failures, right? We learn from when we do something, make a mistake or whatever that looks like. And then you bring this kind of, I'm going to say energy, because there's not a lot of people getting into real estate your age. And I think you guys make this great team because you bring this combination of things. There's not one person that can bring experience, youth, energy, vision. It's really difficult to have one person bring all of that. And I think one of the reasons your relationship works and why you're having so much success in a time when most agents are not is because of that dynamic. I think a seller can look at the two of you and say, wow, I really get it all within, two bodies. And because you're an old married couple, you're kind of a joint at the hip. Matter of fact, at your next listing presentation, you should maybe come in like attached
wearing
at the hip
one suit
or something like that.
Yeah, 100%. I think that'll sell it.
Just to kind of throw it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Harcourts for a second. You have your own office in Newport Beach, California. I know that that's a focus area of yours. I also know you work in other areas. Harcourts, for those people who don't know, is a really unique value proposition. And as you know, I got introduced to someone at Harcourts years ago, and I absolutely love the model. And it's not the same model. Matter of fact, it's different, but it has a ton of success. Originally in Australia and New Zealand, I believe, exactly. Right? Mm-hmm. And now it's been in the U.S. for 20 years, maybe?
About 15 years.
Yeah, but still not enough people know about it. But the people that are doing it are having more success, not always, than some people that are not doing it. So I want you to take a little bit longer after my instruction of only talk a couple minutes. I want you to both to spend a few more minutes on this topic. Why Harcourts and why the auction platform for sellers, right? But don't just say, oh, here's all the great things about the auction platform. Give our 5.3 listeners and readers, give us a couple minutes on why the auction platform, what you really love about it, but maybe like, I always try and get people, don't just sell me why what you do is great. Give me the opposite side of it too. Like what's one of the pitfalls or what's one of the challenges? That way people don't think you're only trying to sell yourself, right? Give me pros and cons of it. I don't care which one of you goes first, and please interrupt each other because that's what mothers and daughters do. But let's spend auction platform, Harcourts, pros and cons to it.
Sure. So I got back into real estate after the mortgage crisis, and then I had a marketing company for about 4 years. And then people kept saying you should be a real estate agent. I joined a very small brokerage in Newport, didn't understand what I didn't understand.
Sure.
And then got recruited to come to Harcourts. And in the conversation, I went, there's something really unique here. And from my marketing company, I knew you had to have something unique to stand out.
Different.
Especially in a market where everybody and their brother is a real estate agent.
Sure.
They may not do anything, but they're still licensed.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got there in the first place. And then I fell in love with the auction platform.
Okay.
I just thought it was a brilliant way to do it.
Did you know right away, Kathy, like first presentation, is it resonating like at first meeting, like, whoa, like this could really be something different?
Well, especially for somebody my age.
Yeah.
There's a lot of younger people doing auction. It's a lot of work, which is the negative that we'll talk about. For an agent, it's not any more work for a seller. It's less work for a seller.
Yeah.
But for an agent, it's a lot more work. And so I knew then it was brilliant and knew that it was the differentiator because now I'm getting into real estate and I'm older, so how do you redefine yourself? And that was a big piece for us is what do we do that's different from everybody else in our market who's been here for 30 years? And then Brenna got a hold of it and with her background in athletics and competitive, she did so well, Harcourts tried to hire her. That's how well she adapted to it.
That was years
ago.
Like ages ago. So when it comes to the auction platform, I was kind of born into real estate with auction. So I know traditional and I know the standard way of selling, but this was also something from the beginning that I said, this makes more sense, just like Kathy did. So there wasn't some old mindset I had to learn my way out of with auction.
No old habits, no old patterns. It was right when you came
right
in.
out of the gate. It was like, this is, to me, the most sense this way.
Yeah.
So when I talk about auction, the part that I think helps people to understand the value of it the most is really you're thinking about a process of you're thinking from the buyer's standpoint. The psychology of a buyer purchasing a home is very important. Like this is one of the most emotional circumstances you're going to be in and decisions you're going to make throughout your life because most of our auction properties are purchased by consumers. They're not purchased by investors.
Right.
It's kind of a misconception. So when you're thinking about a consumer, most of the time their process of going in and looking at a home and getting attached to that home is not really, I don't want to say manipulated, but it's not really controlled by the listing agent. Where in our process with auction, the listing agent is being intentional with the process from day one to the finish line of how do I control the situation and control the buyer psychology around buying a home so that I get my seller what I need.
Yeah.
So the intentionality and the precision with which you go through the process is what I love about it, and it's what gets us the results that we get.
Okay, so
nothing is an accident. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me interrupt for a second. I'm a seller today. You come to my home. 3 agents come to my home. We hear all the great presentations and PowerPoints and all that stuff.
Sure.
The auction, here's a misconception I think about auction.
Sure.
I think a lot of people think you're going to list the home lower and try and drive up the price. Or is it, do you list the home, no exact answer. Do you list the home in a favorable light knowing that you're going to have multiple people trying to bid on it? Is that kind of the genesis of why auction versus why traditional?
Yes. So the perception that a buyer has of a home, if they see it online, they see a low price, that they say, wow, there's no way that home is selling for that
what's
price.
What's wrong with it or something?
And they see the word auction. Those two things, the Harcourts group did a study when they came over here, when they brought the auction process over here, and people are 300 times more likely to put a home with a lower price, perceived lower price, and the word auction associated with it. They're going to put that at the top of their list of what they're going to go see.
Okay.
So we're going to bring people into the home in droves.
You're going to get a bigger audience pool.
You're casting a wider net.
Okay. Is that one of the biggest value propositions of it? Is You're just going to inherently, no exact data, you're just going to get more bodies in the door. Is that kind of the theory behind it?
You're getting more bodies in the door. And then, like I said before, the intentionality throughout the process, you're putting an end date on the opportunity. Most listings, it's like, oh, they're listed a little bit high. I'll just wait for them to reduce.
Okay.
There's no end date. It's just a waiting game.
It's just an open-ended, someone may make an offer, someone may not, whereas auction's different from that.
With auction, think about the psychology of, as a buyer walking into a home and you're surrounded by 20 other people.
Right.
And you're like, oh my gosh, like this place is going to
be
go
energy
fast.
at those auctions has to be really fun, right?
Yes. But I'm just talking about an open house. I'm not even
Oh,
talking about an
got
auction.
it. Oh, got it.
That's the beauty of it, is you walk into an open house and you're like, even if those other 19 groups aren't willing to pay what you're willing to pay, you're like, oh my gosh.
Okay.
Between that and there's an auction date in 30 days.
Now I understand what you're saying about the psychology of it. It changes the perception, right? You walk into a car dealership, there's 800 cars and no bodies. You're like, I'm getting a smoking deal.
Exactly.
You go to a lot today, there's 4 Lexuses on there and there's 9 people and you're like, I'm going to overpay.
Exactly.
Or I'm going to pay retail or whatever.
Exactly.
Got it.
And so
I never understood that psychology part of it, of creating just more competition for the buyers.
That's what I mean by controlling the buyer psychology, is you want, and then when you think about the process, say that buyer makes an offer, even if it's like at the low bidding to start price, we want that, because now what is the buyer thinking? Like, oh, I'm bought in. Like, I want this thing.
Right.
I've been through the door. I've fallen in love. I'm emotionally attached. I've written an offer.
Yeah.
The likelihood that we can get them either up to a higher price or to even just resubmit, which helps us to say to other buyers, well, I've got several offers on the table.
Yeah.
Like, we're able to really utilize all of that frenzy of interest, even if one buyer is our best buyer.
Yeah.
We use all of those individuals and their interest to drive it up as high as possible.
Yeah. I want to dig in on something right now, and you kind of talked about it previously, because we could have a 2-hour session on commissions. I will tell you this, it's not because of what I do for a living. I've been in the middle of a number of transactions where real estate agents, if they looked at their hourly wage on what they earned on a transaction, nobody would get into real estate. Mm-hmm. We all know, everyone thinks, oh, they don't deserve 2%. They don't deserve 3%. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes someone buys a home and you don't have to work as hard, but I'm convinced it took you 40 years combined to know what you do for a living to sometimes have them go easy, right?
Sure.
I've been a commission salesperson my whole life, so we've talked about this. I appreciate where you're at with it. Kathy, you brought up something, and I want to segue into commissions, right? You said it's actually a little bit more work in the auction process, but I didn't hear you say, and we charge more for that.
Well, in our particular process, the auction team, so if you look at all the other auction houses that are out there, they're generally charging a buyer's premium of anywhere between 8 and 17% is the high end, on top of whatever the purchase price is.
Sure.
We don't do that. We have no buyer's premium. So we charge a half point more that comes out of our commission.
Sure.
In order to do it.
To have that platform.
We build a website for it.
Yeah.
We upload all the disclosures. Everything is there, so it's very transparent. So we have a very low fallout rate in escrow.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of those kind of things, which are different and definitely differentiate us.
And because commissions vary to a certain degree, right? They're going to fall between the 2 and 3% range. And I do not want to talk for 1 minute about the National Association of Realtor Change because it was not good. What they should have done is put 10 real estate agents in a room and said, hey, we want to change this. How do we do it? That's not the way those big monsters work. They just think they make changes. But that's a different podcast for a different time. One of the things I love about what you said is there's a fee to have this, but because the commissions vary, the seller's not really paying any more, right? Because you might get someone who comes in and wants to give them a discount and someone else that wants to charge maybe more than they should. But there's really no additional fee. I love that you're willing to take on work that's going to take a little bit more time and a little bit more blood, sweat, and tears for relatively the same compensation. And I think that's one of the things that can set you apart, that you're not trying to monetize it for you. You just want to bring a better value for your seller, knowing that you're going to work a little bit harder. Is that a fair assessment?
We say that to our clients. We say this is way more labor intensive for us, but we believe it's going to serve you right now.
Yeah.
But if you think about it in terms of the financial piece, with an auction property, we've taken on listings that have been sitting on the market for a year. Think about the carry cost alone on that property. And to sit on the market for longer without results, you're still hemorrhaging money.
Right.
Whereas if you take an auction platform and you have it listed for 30 to 60 days, at the very most 60 days, and you have a sale after that, that extra half point of commission pales in comparison to what you were paying for the carry cost.
Yeah, for
so you think about the timeline as well. To get a result when others can't. That's where auction really pulls through as well.
What's the biggest? I always put myself at a table, right? If I'm selling a bird cage, if I'm selling gum, it doesn't matter. What's the seller's first reaction when you get invited in with, let's just say there's 3 agents they want to interview and you've got your traditional model. What's their first reaction when you say, hey, where we're different, besides being this mother-daughter team, is we have an auction platform. Let me walk you through it. Is the first apprehension just because they don't know about it? Or is it like, oh my gosh, it seems weird. So because it seems weird, I'd rather stay safe and go the traditional route. What's the first apprehension for that seller when you want to introduce something maybe they've never heard of before?
The biggest immediate objection we get is, well, I'm not going to sell for a price I don't want. People assume that they have to sell,
which they
for
don't.
Whatever we get on the auction.
You're still
day.
going to establish a price, right?
You still remain in full control.
Yeah.
Your home could be worth $2 million. I get you $10 million. You don't have to take it, even on auction day.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest fears people have.
Sure.
And then I would say after that, I think just really bright people tend to understand the process. Yeah. So if you walk them through
I
it,
love
they're
that
like, this is
descriptive
great.
word, by the way.
I was going to say it, but I was trying to be nice. But we had one of our favorite clients was a couple. She's an attorney. They were selling their own home. They were being transplanted back east. And he CEO of a couple large entities. And he decided he didn't even want to interview us. He's like, no, I don't want to listen to that. And finally, we got him to agree to 10 minutes by Zoom.
It was Skype at that time.
Yeah. And very quickly, I just went through the snapshot of the process. And he said, my saying that all of my employees know is I'd rather compete than negotiate. Sold.
Interesting.
So people get it.
Yeah.
If you're able to just dispel some of those immediate, people think courthouse steps, they think distress.
Right.
You're able to really walk through why that is not the case here.
Yeah.
People generally understand.
Yeah.
But often defer to us and say, what do you think is best for this market and for my situation?
Yeah. So. I can't believe for how long I've known the two of you, I gained more knowledge about what you do and how you do it in the last 4 minutes, not your fault, than our entire relationship together, because I have some of those misconceptions about auction too, right? It's the first thing you think. Like you're thinking I'm at a Christie's sale, there's an auction, the painting's minimum bid or something like that. But the way you explain it, the value proposition, it seems like for the seller is, listen, you pick your poison. You can go traditional or not. But let's dispel. You don't have to sell it for less. We're going to sell it for what we're going to sell it for or not. But one of the things you just said that I think is a huge advantage, and you both know I just recently sold my home. Yeah. I don't want to say I didn't care about the negotiations back and forth. Like no one likes that. That's not true. There's some people who like to just like grind it out.
Yeah.
But the majority of people, they just want it to be easier, right? Yeah. It seems like there may be some components where the auction platform may be a little bit easier in a couple of those areas. But I could imagine still it's it's kind of like bringing something new to market, right? You probably have to spend as much time just trying to explain it to get get them to understand it versus just people saying, "Oh, it's an auction." Like that guy, I don't even give you 10 minutes because it just doesn't make sense to me.
Sure.
Well, and that particular guy had been told by the 2 top agents in the market that there was no way they would get over a certain price, and we got $400,000 over that in 8 days.
Yeah.
So it's because agents have a prejudice against the process as well.
Well, they don't want to take the time to learn it. I mean, when we say it's labor intensive for us, it's because I can say in my sleep the pitch I give at open houses to agents who don't understand the process.
Yeah.
It is like clockwork because we say it 400 times per campaign.
Yeah.
So we're explaining the process. But when it comes to the negotiations and how streamlined the process is for the seller experience, all your inspections, everything's done.
Yeah.
And you have leverage because you have 7 people vying for the property. So you're able to get the cleanest offer most of the time.
Yeah, way better demand for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You just have leverage. You have the control.
I'm so frustrated with both of you.
Why?
Because I didn't want to talk business. I swear, I just wanted to talk fun stuff.
Well, what else do you want to talk
about? No, I know we do enough stuff personally.
Yeah.
But like, I never know the direction these conversations are going to go. And I'd much rather like hear one thing and then say, oh my gosh, like let's talk about that. So we're not going to talk as much personal as I want. We can do that at a lunch. We have an important year coming up. We've had a really interesting 5 years in real estate to 7 years. I mean, every year is unique and interesting and different. Some years are easier. Some years are harder. I have 2 questions for you. Trade off with whoever wants to answer it. First question, what's the biggest challenge for a seller coming up in 2025 to sell a home? And are you concerned about interest rates and how it may relate to sellers? Unless you say, oh, we think interest rates is the biggest challenge. Then I'll come up with a second question. But what's the biggest challenge for sellers in 2025 to succeed?
Yeah, I think it's people are holding on. They're kind of waiting to see what happens. You have sellers hunkering down because they want to see a change in rates, and you have buyers that are hoping to see a change in rates. So everyone's kind of a bit at a standstill. You are seeing demand and inventory kind of fluctuate from the beginning of the year to now.
Yeah.
But that's my perception of it is the number of transactions is still down. And I think people are just holding tight. That's my perception.
Because here, as we're filming, it's early February 2025, right? We know the challenges of supply and demand during COVID, right? It's a little bit better, not really, but we know that the times have changed a little bit. But we're seeing days on market longer, right, Kathy? We're seeing inventories a little bit higher than what it's been previously.
In general, but that hasn't been our experience.
Well, I think how you come onto the market and how you position the property is more important now than ever. But yes, inventory is still higher.
And my biggest concern is I've got people who are saying, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to do this to the house to get ready. I'm going to do that. And I'm saying, just get on the market.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what it's going to be like in 6 months.
We don't.
We know what it's like right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest challenge is getting people to understand that what they see now may not be at all what it's like in September.
Yeah.
So.
And isn't it, I don't want to talk bad about, we probably have 6 listeners now, and I don't want to talk bad about our listeners. And you and I specifically have talked about this with your years in mortgage and mine. And it's crazy how people will invite us into their home or on a phone call and ask, I'm going to self-deprecate, I don't know that I'm the professional, but ask for my professional advice. And we try and give them, hey, here's your best case, worst case, right? It's, first of all, this is a quick comment. It's crazy how many people ask for advice and don't follow it.
Yeah.
Because I know you too. You've helped customers of mine. You present options. And let me give you pros and cons of that. And ultimately, you got to make the decision. But you guys come armed with data. And, hey, none of us can predict the market. So let me try and bring this preface to a full circle. I have a number of clients that are like, oh, my gosh, are you watching the price drops on market? And I don't want to be disrespectful to them because they just don't know. And what I say is, first of all, if you've got a seller that wants to sell their home higher than what they should be, and they have an agent who's willing to let them list their home for sale for more than it should be, don't let the price drop fool you. It doesn't mean the market's tanking. It just means that home probably wasn't worth what they listed it for.
Agents aren't doing their job.
They're not doing their job, right? Because let me give an affirmation right now. I'm watching you two have success right now and doing a lot of real estate transactions. And we know the data, right? 2023, the average California real estate agent sold 1.4 homes. Now, we know there's too many of them licensed, and we know some of that stuff. But you two are not just like maintaining, you're growing. You're involved in a number of transactions where most of your competition is not. Do you attribute that to being realistic with sellers about the price? Because I know you two. You're not taking a listing for a $2.6 million home if there's no way it's selling for more than $2 million, right? Do you attribute that part of it to where you've got to set a realistic expectation, and the seller has to have a realistic expectation, right?
Oh, absolutely. We didn't take a listing recently because we knew that the seller's expectations were too high and they weren't willing to listen to us, which to us wasn't a good sign. It's not a great use of our time.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And they were adamant that they weren't going to pay any buyer side compensation.
Yeah.
So they wanted top dollar, not pay compensation, and everybody calculates that in, right? There's a cost.
Right.
And he was generally not pleasant. And so between all of it, we just went, we don't even want to do this. We just, we like working with people we like.
Yeah.
And we work really hard. So we want to be appreciated.
Yeah.
Well, if you trust us, then we can help to educate you. And if you want to listen, then we are all for that. So we're not going to close the door on someone who just needs to be more informed.
Sure.
But it's not worth us spending our time if Zillow or whatever else you believe is more valuable than our expertise.
Yeah.
So
I love something that you just said, and I feel like you garnered that from working with your mom. It's difficult to say no to a prospective client.
Oh, yeah.
And in my early years in the mortgage business, I got introduced to a real estate agent who came to me for a Cal FHA loan where you literally, it was like a $90,000 loan. You could only make a 1% commission, so it was $900, which would have meant $450 before taxes, $275. And this agent beat the absolute snot out of me. And he was my only agent at the time. And I told him on a Saturday that I couldn't work with him anymore. First of all, he blew up at me. Second of all, I had to go to tell my wife that I don't think we're going to be able to pay our rent the next month. And she said, why? I said, because I refused to work with someone who's going to treat me like that. I don't know that she was okay with that decision at the time. But to bring that full circle, I love that you're in a position to where you can say, listen, if we can bring value, we're going to take the client. If we can be like-minded, we're going to take client. That doesn't mean that every client's going to be perfect, right?
No.
But I love that you two have the confidence in your abilities to say, we're going to win. We're going to help you win. We're going to give you white glove service, but you can't abuse us and you can't set the wrong expectation or we're just going to fail, right? I can't believe how fast this went. I have so much more I want to talk to you about, but I want to try and get this thing wrapped up before I allow you a chance to tell the audience how to connect with you and really what you can do. I will say this about Brenna and Kathy. If you're looking to sell real estate, they're a great place to start. They're experts in their field. You've heard a little bit about the auction platform. If you want to understand a little bit more, reach out to them. They also help buyers. They're really specialists in sellers. They've helped a number of my clients, and it's just been a joy and a pleasure to watch how they work. And so they're a really great resource. One more fun thing before we finish. So I asked you some questions before, we get ready for this interview. How do you not like or follow sports when you played sports your whole life? Is it that you did too much of it and you're like,
No.
Or like...
Okay, I have literally put on my dating profile on the apps that I want a football family to marry into because I love you, but we are not...
Kathy doesn't really follow like sports, right?
And I've had friends download the apps onto my phone to like... This is when the game. I'm like, when do you know when the games are? Like, what team do I cheer for? Like, I just don't know what to do.
Right, and
so
you haven't found that yet.
I need someone to tell me.
Okay, so I'm going to make one final proposal to you that you and I have jokingly laughed about.
To marry your son.
And then I'm going to ask Kathy one more question. I have bribed Brenna to meet my 25-year-old son to consider a potential dowry in a wedding. And when my son sees this, he's not just going to be like, Dad, don't do these. He's going to be like, Dad, seriously, I can't believe you did that. Part of the dowry would be if you choose to root for the Tennessee Titans, who are difficult to root for.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't recognize that name.
I would be up for like jersey, season tickets, and everything. So if you need a football family to join, be prepared for some fun and a lot of misery, but that could be part of the dowry.
We've talked about this before. There's no father-in-law I'd rather have than you.
Well, thank you.
So we might just need to discuss the terms of the dowry after this and put some.
I'm willing to talk about the dowry. You'd have to meet my daughter-in-law first to make sure.
There we go.
Yeah, Kathy. There's a question you left blank, but I want to know why.
What is it?
Last day on Earth, favorite meal. Do you love food, or you just like food's like fuel that I need to eat every day? Like last day on Earth, is there like a favorite?
She is a foodie.
Okay, yeah, right.
I'm not.
Okay.
I've had allergies all my life.
Okay,
I can't taste things the way other people can.
Yeah.
So when you said, what's a favorite meal? I went, I don't know.
Nothing
Can I
really.
answer for you?
Yes.
Because this is something that she loves. It's not a meal, but you give Kathy like a Hawaii hotel balcony in the morning with a cup of coffee. She has never been happier.
Okay.
Like on vacation, cup of coffee in the morning,
Cup of coffee.
out on some sort of patio.
How about a Pop-Tart? Like a Danish?
What about like a really good cinnamon roll?
Apple fritter?
Honestly, a really good croissant.
Okay,
That would probably be the closest.
Like, because that's what really matters. That no one cares about real estate and auction platform
it's the
and
food.
mortgages. They want to know about food and why,
about life.
and how this, literally like how this mother and daughter not just work together, but like each other and laugh. As we get ready to wrap up, I want one or both of you to look into that camera. Tell people how they can connect with you if they want to just find out more about how do mothers and daughters get along in real estate. What does an auction platform look like? We have a question about it. Either one of you could just tell people how to reach you. That'd be great.
Yeah. So which one?
Oh, I'm not even sure, but give it a try.
It's fine. We don't care. So our Instagram handle is Kathy_Brenna_real estate. That is the easiest way to reach us. You can book our time there. If you'd like to ask us any questions, you're more than welcome to. And other than that, look us up on YouTube. We're everywhere.
Yeah. I'm super grateful for our friendship. I love that you allow me to talk to you like a daughter, because your mom said if I want to say something to you, I can.
No, I love it.
And I've shared with you so often, like your age and my daughter and your spirits, you and my daughter Amanda are really like almost identical. I'm grateful that we have so much history together in the sense that you really launched your career in mortgage, and then you took your success and moved it into real estate. And I'm grateful for our friendship because of your personality, but I also love that we both love talking about real estate. We love just talking about the successes and the failures and all of it. That's good. Brenna and Kathy are an incredible team. They're absolute experts in real estate. It doesn't matter what aspect of it, and it doesn't matter where it is. They are specialists in Southern California, especially the Newport Beach coastal areas. They currently have an incredible listing opportunity in Northern California, the auction platform. They've done business out of the county, the auction platform. Reach out to them, get to know them. You'll be glad that you did, and thanks for sharing some time on our show with our interview. Thank you both.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, you're welcome.